Welcome to NYC Now, your source for local news in and around New York City from WNYC. It's Friday, May 2nd. Here's the morning headlines from Michael Hill.
Some state lawmakers want to give the New York City Council the ability to remove a sitting mayor. The new plan would require the council to give the mayor a chance to be heard before deciding the mayor's fate, and it would require a 3/4 vote for the removal to take effect. Brooklyn Assemblymember Robert Carroll says that's better than the current system where the governor can unilaterally remove a mayor.
I think it's much more transparent. It's much more small d democratic to allow the 51 duly elected members of the council to make this choice.
Now, the governor would still have removal power under the plan, but generations of governors have been reluctant to use it. That includes Governor Hochul, who declined this year to remove Mayor Adams. Did you know May is National Bike Month? New York City's Department of Transportation is marking it with a series of events and other programming. WNYC's Sean Carlson has more.
There will be helmet and equipment giveaways and fittings throughout the month of May across the city. The DOT will also be holding delivery worker outreach events to provide information and safety vests. And on May 18th, the department and councilmember Gail Brewer will host a bike bonanza at Tecumseh Playground on the Upper West Side, featuring learn-to-ride classes and a kids' bike swap. Bike Month comes as the Transportation Department touts new biker-friendly additions to the cityscape, including traffic signals geared towards cyclists along Manhattan's 3rd Avenue. The DOT also unveiled a new online bike counter, which brings together biking data into an interactive platform.
Now, that's more like it, Knicks fans. Yeah, they did it last night. The New York Knicks are moving on to the second round of the NBA playoffs. It was another squeaker, dogfight last night in a series full of them. The Knicks barely won. They edged out Detroit Pistons on the road in Motor City 116-113 and won the series. Knicks captain Jalen Brunson led the scores for the Knicks. He hit a three-pointer with 4.5 seconds to go to give the Knicks the lead. Next up, the defending champions, NBA champions, Boston Celtics. Watch out. Game 1 is Monday in Boston. 57 and partly sunny right now, going up to 83 with shower and storm chances.
Stay close. There's more after the break.
I'm Sean Carlson for WNYC. It is time for On the Way, our weekly segment on all things considered, breaking down the week's transit news. Joining us is WNYC's transportation reporter Stephen Nesson and Ramsey Khalife and editor Clayton Guza. We often focus on the subway system in the segment, but today we're going to spend some time talking about the region's commuter rail lines. Now, there's trouble brewing for virtually all of them. Let's start with Amtrak's plans to repair its East River tunnels between Manhattan and Queens, which were damaged way back in 2012 during Hurricane Sandy. Stephen, how is that going to affect riders?
Well, let's start by giving everyone the lay of the land. Amtrak owns 4 East River tunnels. They were flooded in Sandy. 2 still need repairs.
Okay.
Those tunnels are primarily used by Long Island Railroad trains moving between Queens and Penn Station. They're also used by Amtrak's Northeast Corridor, and a lot of people don't know this, but New Jersey Transit uses them as well. Excuse me. They store their trains out in Queens during off-peak hours before sending them back to Jersey.
Right, and these tunnels are 115 years old. They were damaged by Sandy. Amtrak says they need to fix 2 of them, 2 of the 4, right? And they're going to close those 2 tunnels one at a time completely. So it's going to reduce the number of tubes in the East River available for all those trains that Stephen's laying out. And the MTA right now is sounding the alarm, saying, hey, okay, if anything goes wrong, we don't have any way to divert service or to kind of correct for problems, and that could cause big issues for riders.
And this work is expected to take 3 years. In fact, this week, the MTA board has so little faith in Amtrak, they passed a resolution condemning their plan. They say, here's MTA Chair Jana Lieber.
I ain't giving up these hard-won gains for on-time performance for Long Islanders because Amtrak is too hidebound to consider a different way of performing work. We're not going to sit idly by while our riders suffer because Amtrak just wants to do things the way they've always been done.
Whoa. So Lieber is pretty proud about how punctual Long Island Railroad service is. Mm-hmm. Right now, trains are on time about 95% of the time. And so one of the other big reasons he's sounding the alarm is that Amtrak was supposed to start this work on Monday. but it didn't.
Okay.
MTA officials say they never heard from Amtrak. They have no clue why the work didn't even start.
What?
So they just keep running regular service.
Okay.
And beyond the existing service, the MTA has a big reason, a big need to get this tunnel work done soon. Metro North is going to start running trains, or plans to start running trains at a Penn station for the first time ever in the next few years through Penn Access. It's going to add 4 new stations in the Bronx, kind of be a big boost of service. But for that to exist, for that service to run, they need all of these East River tunnels to be up and running. So they're really tightening the screws on Amtrak, saying, hey, don't mess up our plans.
Yeah. Well, what does the MTA want Amtrak to do?
Well, basically, they want them to reconsider shutting down the tunnel entirely and doing repairs on nights and weekends instead. Stop me if this sounds familiar. You may recall former Governor Cuomo swooping in at the MTA just before the L train was going to shut down for over a year of repairs. Mm-hmm. He brought in outside experts who determined that it could be done on nights and weekends if you hang cables on the wall and cover the broken bench wall to make it more sturdy rather than replacing it entirely. But Amtrak's tunnels are different in a few key ways. They have higher voltage cables, so you can't just hang them on the wall. They have overhead catenary power, and Amtrak wants to replace the way the tracks are connected to the ground. So it's complicated work that they say just can't be done on nights and weekends. They also took a little dig at the MTA's L train repairs and said, we're designing it to last for 100 years or more, implying that that's not how the MTA did it when they replaced the L train tunnel.
Wow. Let's also remember this, the Gateway program, right? That big effort to, dig a new Hudson River tunnel and then repair the old ones, which were also damaged by Sandy. Amtrak says they cannot fix the existing Sandy-damaged Hudson River tunnels on nights and weekends. So if Amtrak came and said that that's a whole justification for building a whole new tunnel with a huge federal grant.
$16 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
If Amtrak comes and says, okay, MTA, we'll fix the East River tunnel, very similar tunnel, on nights and weekends, then everyone's going to come back and say, why can't you do that in the Hudson?
Yeah.
Why did the feds just give you the largest grant in history for a mass transit project?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on right now with all this work. But what's really important to remember is that, the commutes of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of riders are at stake.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. All right, let's turn our attention to the West here. Ramsey, you reported this week that NJ Transit workers are potentially preparing to go on strike. What's the latest on that, and how would that impact riders?
Yes, so like you said, New Jersey Transit is now warning of a potential strike with the Locomotive Engineers Union. So these are the people who drive all of the agency's commuter trains. New Jersey Transit President Chris Caluri is now telling Garden State commuters that on May 16th, there's a risk of a shutdown to the commuter rail service. And they've created a contingency plan. So that would enhance existing bus service. It would add more bus options at 4 different commuter rail stations. But New Jersey Transit buses, Amtrak trains, PATH trains, those will still be running. Those will still be available. It's just the commuter rail service. So there are going to be limited seats on all those other transit services. So what jumped out to me that Caluri said is he's actually telling commuters, if you can work from home, stay at home.
Wow.
So the disagreement with the union is, of course, over pay raises. The union is called the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, and they say they've been working under an expired contract since 2019. So that's 6 years without an increase to their pay. So the last time that union went on strike was in 1983, again, over a dispute on wages. The strike lasted a bit over a month, and it completely halted service. So what we know now is the union leaders and New Jersey Transit are meeting again at the bargaining table next week, and there's still time to resolve this before that May 16th deadline.
Okay. I'm curious to hear about this one. Kind of excited about this one. The MTA is moving forward on a pilot program to test out 4 designs for subway fare gates. It's the agency's latest step to crack down on fare evasion. When is that starting, and what do they look like?
Yeah, so they're fare gates, not turnstiles. So this is what the new designs will include. So instead of those horizontal bars that are easy to jump over, the designs will now feature glass sliding doors that officials say are very difficult to force open. And obviously, they're all going to use the Omni Tap to Pay since we're phasing out the Metro cards. So what's going to happen is 4 companies will compete in a pilot program to test out their designs at 20 different subway stations in the city starting this fall. While they're still in the process of selecting all those stations, they've named a few, namely Union Square and the Atlantic Terminal. The MTA will later pick whichever design is the most effective and install that at 150 stations across the entire city over the next 5 years. The transition to new fare gates aligns with the agency's continued fight, obviously, against fare evasion.
Right.
And it's the first fundamental redesign of turnstiles, basically in close to a century.
Yeah.
The MTA, year after year, I mean, Stephen and I have been at the archives, found reports from the 80s that really resemble modern MTA reports where they decry the losses to fare evasion. And year after year, MTA chair after MTA chair says, we got to do something about this. But no one has come up with a genius idea of saying, why don't we change the fare gates so that you can't just jump over the turnstiles? So this is kind of their first step to really address that from an infrastructure point of view rather than kind of a society or policing point of view.
And it is in the capital plan, which was fully funded this week thanks to the state budget. So there is $1.1 billion to get these new fare gates going. But, it's not like the MTA has just sat around watching fare evasion happen. They have taken steps over the last year or so, really. We talked about the back-cocking. They sort of disabled that ability on the turnstiles. They hired those private security guards you see standing in front of exit gates, and they've put that 15-second timer on some of the exit gates, which apparently has had some impact. Recent data shows there's only 10% fare evasion on the subways. That's compared to a recent high last year of 14% of riders. So they're making a dent.
Right, and over $1 billion is a lot, but in the MTA would say, hey, we're losing 300, 400 plus million a year to fare evasion. If we can get that number down, this kind of expenditure pays for itself.
Well, I guess to your point, I'm going to believe it when I see it with these new fare gates.
And New Yorkers are very clever, too.
Yeah, they'll find a way around it at some point. We'll leave it there for today. Thanks also to WNYC transportation reporters Ramsey Khalifa and Stephen Nesson and editor Clayton Guzzi. You can stay in the know on all things transit or ask a question of your own by signing up for our weekly newsletter at gothamist.com/ontheway. Another wild week. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Sean.
Go Knicks.
Thanks for listening. This is NYC Now from WNYC. Be sure to catch us every weekday, 3 times a day, for your top news headlines and occasional deep dives. Also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back this evening.